Good evening, everyone. We are going to call the City of Deltona City Commission Workshop for Monday, June 14th, 2021 to order. May we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Vila Vasquez.
Mr. Manager, is Commissioner Vasquez excused or on her way?
She is attending a funeral, and she said she would be here quickly as she can.
Thank you.
Commissioner King.
Here.
Commissioner McCool. Here. Commissioner Ramos.
Present.
Commissioner Sosa.
Here.
Vice Mayor Bradford. Here. And Mayor Herzberg.
Here, may we all stand for the pledge to the flag? Commissioner King, would you like to lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, this evening, our order of business is a workshop to review the proposed annual budget for fiscal year 2021-22. So this is a first of 4 nights in a row for budget hearings. So Mr. Peters, would you like to begin?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to do a little bit of housekeeping right up front. I had a request from the sheriff if he could be moved earlier into the agenda. So what I would like to do is have him speak right after my overview. He has another engagement. Just to kind of outline what we're doing, I apologize for putting a hard load on you with 4 straight workshops, 4 straight nights. Our plan is to do these workshops. We will make modification to the budget, come back for a workshop on the 28th of this month. And our plan is on to July 6th. We will be prepared to set the maximum millage rate that we're required by law to have to the tax office by August, early August. So it's a very aggressive schedule, but we will be able to relax a little bit and catch our breath before the final budget hearings in September. At the very beginning of your package, you have a general overview chart. And the only thing that I would point out is there is an error down in the green section on the first line where it talks about 5 million something. We moved the 5 million. It's actually only 300 and some thousand. When we go over the Parks and Rec budget, you will find out why that number changed. The history of property taxable values, you will see that generally it's a fairly steady growth pattern in terms of the taxable values. That is in large part because of the Save Our Homes provision that only allows homesteaded properties to grow at 3% a year. So that chart is reflective of that. The next chart is the history of new taxable values, and you will note a very precipitous increase in taxable values, and that in large part is why we are in fairly good financial state in terms of our unrestricted fund balance, which right now sits at about $24 million. We are planning to draw that down some over the next 2 years, but we also saw a very large increase in our anticipated ad valorem revenue for this year, and so we're taking advantage of that to correct some personnel issues that we've had over the last several years that we've identified, and so we will be going over those with each of the individual departments. The history of millage rate, we've been at 7.85 for some time. We did this budget based on 7.85, and let me explain. While we have a healthy fund balance, we are looking at the potential of a recession. Every study you read and everything, the anticipation is much like we did back in the early 2000s. We're seeing property values very high. We're seeing construction value very high. And there is an anticipation that we're probably in a bubble, right, a real estate bubble again. And so we want to see what happens with the long-term economy. In addition, there's been a lot of discussion about the city implementing a residential rental license program that would bring in $2.5 million a year. So between the economy and whether we go forward with that license program, we will know what kind of financial state we are in a year from now. And it is I anticipate that next year that we would probably, if things stay steady, we would probably be able to look at going to a rollback rate next year as opposed to 7.85. But for this year, we need to be conservative because we are correcting some personnel shortfalls. And so for that reason, I'm proposing a conservative budget based on 7.85 millage rate. And you will see this is just a comparative chart as to what normal expenditures are and what the normal residential tax rate provides. And you can see that the estimated tax per residential parcel is $595 on average. That compares to what people pay for internet and cable service, what they pay for their cell phones, what they pay for their dining out, what they pay for clothing, and what they pay for domestic vacation. So that's pretty good comparative numbers. So when somebody complains that they can't afford a tax rate, they seem to be able to afford a lot of other things that are even more expensive. The next page is an overview of the revenue side and the expenditure side of the equation. As you can see, the revenue side is somewhat higher. I think it was about $4 million additional Avalon taxes that we're looking at for next year. Is that right, John? Yeah.
Can you put the mic down, please, and speak into the mic? Thank you.
The reason we had high revenue this year because we received the $6.9 million because of COVID money. This year, and we are expecting another $6.9 million next year.
All right, I'm going to let you pick up at the next page on the general fund overview, if you would.
Okay, this is the general fund overview, and we are expecting a little bit higher on the tax revenue next year because the taxable value increased, but probably in the July number will be a little bit decreased, but it's not so much on the decrease in the tax revenue. So we have a little bit more money on the tax revenue next year, and the licenses and permits, so we are pretty much stable as what we received last year, or a little bit less. And intergovernmental revenue is like grants or things like that. We are expecting a little bit less, less than last year, but we're still going to get some of the $6.9 million for the COVID money next year. For charges per service, it's pretty much the same as the last year, and there is not much difference in fines or miscellaneous revenue. So total revenue we're expecting next year is a little over $50 million. And expenditure, because we had the comm study done, so personnel a little bit increased next year, and we add, how many was that? Was the 6 code enforcement and then 1 analyst? Next year we added 7 to the code enforcement officers, and we added between the part-time and the full-time, we added 16 people in the Parks and Recs next year. That's why its personnel cost is a little bit higher. And operating is just a little bit higher because we were looking at a little bit of inflation or looking at the additional cost because we have more employees next year. But transfer out, this is basically we are transferring money to the capital funds for like replace the trucks, the vehicles, and some of them is the transportation fund that we're gonna fund next year for $3 million from general fund. That's why it's a $60 million transfer out next year. Allocation is the allocation from IT department funds and affiliate allocations. So each department has to pay a little bit of IT department budget and a little bit of affiliate that we're getting in the service on each department. That's why it has a negative number. So total expenditure is we're looking at the 52.7 million next year. So we're gonna use some of the fund balance in general fund next year, approximately about 2 million next year.
Any questions? Okay. If you go to the page with the people, this is a very important chart because it shows that we are significantly below our sister cities in terms of staffing level on a per capita basis. The only other city that's close to us is Palm Coast. The rest of them are significantly smaller number, more staff.
This is it.
So, and this is one of the things that we're trying to address in the budget is the shortfall in the planning in Parks and Rec and in our code enforcement area that we've already identified for you all. So, did I see a question up there?
Yes, can we go back one slide? Because I thought those numbers were different than what we have here. That's totally different than what we have up here. Am I the only one who has that?
What do you have that's different?
Yes. So,
And the third column?
yeah,
What do you have for the first under taxes? For the third column?
That is actually close to 5 million because this is not, I forgot to update it on the using a fund balance after I added the transportation. So if you added 3 million to this, it's a 4.9 million is the correct number using a fund balance.
So your bottom number, you have 52,7.
So 52,
Yeah, mine does too.
50.7, I actually need to add another 3 million. I forgot to add the 3
So-
million transfer to transportation fund.
so what we have is updated then?
Yes.
Because we have the 4.6
Right.
and you have
What you have
1.9.
is the updated ones.
Okay,
I forgot
thank
to
you.
update it. Sorry, because,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, what you have is updated ones, I'm sorry.
And one of the things that's important with the number on the bottom, it's 3 million of the money we're using as transfer in is coming from the undesignated reserves for Rhode Island. We're taking 3 million out of the undesignated reserves and 7 million out of the transportation
Film
fund.
furniture, yes.
So, it's a one-time usage for a capital project. And the plan is that as we get growth in revenue in the activity center, 1/4 of that growth will come back and replenish this money. So we will replenish the money. We're just taking basically a loan against the undesignated reserve.
Any more? You good? So the transfer out is 9 million in the updated one, right? Last
Correct.
column?
And we will go over that in just a minute.
Fourth line, because the bottom number on your screen is 1967,200, and we have 49,67,200. Right. Fourth line from the bottom, the end column,
Yes.
that should be 9 million.
The 9 million includes things like transferring money from the general fund into the recreation, transferring money into other accounts, and we will
I just want to
cover
be
that
clear.
as we go further in.
Okay, then we have the correct one. Thank you. Okay. Okay, number of citizens per employee.
If you go over one more page. Okay, this is capital request building. The City Hall building is about 20 years old. It's in dire need of TLC between carpet and painting, and so we have put aside $300,000 toward that. We have a fiber initiative for the IT for $100,000. The fire department has a vehicle storage area for $65,000, and then the fire training facility is $650,000 for the grounds. So that's $1.15 million under the buildings request. The next page, we have capital request for equipment. The biggest items here are for $150,000 for the sand replacement in IT. 30. No, you can read it. I don't need to go through it all. Then the next page, continuing with equipment. In the big ones, this is what I was looking for. $370,000 for a transport vehicle and $710,000 for a fire truck. So we have over $1 million worth of equipment in the fire department. Just to give you for instance, what we're dealing with. I receive text messages all the time when we get called out. We had a situation where I think engine 63 and engine 61 were requiring the services of Public Works at the same time. That basically meant we had 2 trucks down. So we got some trucks that are beyond their life as far as I'm concerned. So it's imperative that we proceed with replacement of a fire truck, and the same thing on the transport side. Let's see. Everything else I think is relatively straightforward on that page. Then we get to Parks and Recreation. Nothing earth-shattering, just basically day-to-day needs there. It's important to realize that in the budget for Parks and Rec, we are asking for 16 additional employees. This will take it back to the level that we were at back in 2007, 2008. If you all go around to the various park facilities, while we have incredible parks, they're in need of TLC. Just things like removing the vines off the fences at Dewey Boster. You know, the thing that Ryan and I have talked about is having a crew for each park so that, you know, when you go by Dewey Boster, you will know which crew either did a great job or a not so great job. They'll be held accountable for their facility. Right now, we got so many people going to so many parks, it's hard to hold people accountable. And quite frankly, we don't have the staffing level we need to adequately maintain our park facilities. Next page, a continuation of the parks capital. Now, one of the key things here that you all have been talking about for some time is the next to last item, which is the community center craft building renovations. We've been talking about that for some time, and we have put the money in the budget this year to take care of that and get it back to the state that it needs to be. And then on the last page under Parks and Rec, there is $250,000 designated here for a new gym at West Crowell. I have taken that out of the budget. We will be removing that because there was a plan for a $5 million expenditure, not the coming year, but the following year for a new gym. And Ryan and I are having some discussions about an alternative facility that we will be talking to you all about during the next year. It's something that we think will be very exciting for the city, much more so than a gym. And so that $250,000 will not be in the budget next time you see it. And then the other things are upgrades and replacement. Next page is personnel requests.
May I have a question?
City clerk's office and administrative assistant.
Commissioner Vasquez has a question.
Yes, ma'am.
First of all, I'm here for attendance. I have a question with the community center on Lakeshore Drive. Was that roof taken care of in the community center?
Pardon me?
The roof in the community center itself, was that roof already repaired?
Based on everything I understand, that's adequate funding to take care of what we need to for the craft building.
No, well, she was asking if the roof was repaired at the community center. On the regular community center building, was the roof repaired?
As you all know, we're going to be shutting down the boat ramp for the next 18 months for the river withdrawal project for Deltona Water. We will be doing an evaluation of that location. As you know, Jerry Mays is part of the ecotourism. They've been talking about tree houses and modifying the community building to be a facility with like a bike shop, an ice cream shop, something like that. We've been discussing some other alternatives that potentially could be paid for by the private sector, an upgraded building. And so we have 18 months to take a look at that and figure it out for the next budget cycle.
Okay, the reason why I'm asking that question is I know that here it says roof for the schoolhouse, and I know that the damages on the community center building itself, the roof was also damaged by the weather. And I'm just wondering, are we getting any return from the insurance company on these repairs?
I'm not aware of that, but when Ryan Reckley comes for the discussion on the Parks and Rec
Okay.
part of the budget, I will have him prepared to answer that question.
Thank you very much.
All right. Back to the personnel requests. We have a request for one administrative assistant in city clerk's office. Now, mind you, this is salary and benefits. So, the salary is not $51,000. It's significantly less. What we have found in city clerk's office is due to the volume of records requests that we're getting, we are not able to keep up. We had, for instance, just in one person, 2 people this year, we had 3 banker boxes full of records requests. That takes time, even just to generate an estimate, takes quite a bit of time. So we're finding, and we've had some issues keeping up with other business because of the amount of time we're spending. So this is a reasonable request. Information technology, application analysts, similarly, we have a lot of different software and applications that we keep track of, especially, this is my personal favorite, the Munis software. It seems like they do an update about every other week, and it creates a lot of problems for us to make sure that everything with the firewalls and all that are done properly so that that can go through properly. Also under information technology is a business analyst and an infrastructure supervisor. Then in the construction services, building department, plans examiner. What we are working toward, as you all know, we have the basic internal staff, and then when we are not able to keep up with the workload, we make use of universal engineering to make up the difference. It's very expensive. Just to put it in perspective for you, a typical universal inspector makes between $90,000 and $100,000, and then we have to pay the upsides on that. So it's very expensive for us to use universal. What we have found is we definitely have a shortage with regard to plans examiner. And so we're recommending we do that. That will make us less reliant on universal. One of our key people that do plans examiner work would prefer to go back out into the field. And so this is much needed. Basically, we're creating another inspector for, by virtue of the current plans examiner moving out to the field. Code enforcement. As you all have heard during the code enforcement workshop, the recommendation is 6 additional code officers and 1 analyst. The 6 additional code officers and the analysts will basically return it to the staffing level that we were back in the mid to late 2000s before the economy went down. We feel like we're making good headway with regard to code enforcement. We just don't have the staff to keep up with the volume. And so with the additional staff, we will be able to achieve a higher level of compliance and help with beautifying the city. Fleet maintenance, we're very unique in that we have mechanics in our garage who are EVT certified. This is an emergency vehicle technicians. They have to go through a lot of different certifications. I know for the fire department vehicles, it requires 13 different certifications to be able to work on a fire truck appropriately. And what we're finding is we're getting a very high volume of usage from the fire department. So it's necessary for us to get another EVT mechanic. Once again, if we went out to the private sector with E1 or one of those type companies, it would be significantly more cost to us than just having a person in the field for us.
That's just the certification, the $1,700, right?
Pardon me?
That's not a whole new person, that's just to certify an individual, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Then in Parks and Recreation, we're looking at administrative assistant, and then we're looking for a special events coordinator, a park superintendent, and then we're looking at 4 crew leaders, 4 park maintenance techs, and 4 athletic leaders, and converting a athletic site coordinator from part-time to full-time. This is all part of our effort to provide an adequate staffing level to keep our parks up and keep our recreation program. Our long-term goal with Parks and Rec is to have the proper staffing, proper fee structure to where the Parks and Recreation program can be self-funding. It won't rely on the general fund as much in the future. Ryan Reckley is going to be pursuing consultants to help us with setting the proper fee schedule so that we can be a self-sustaining recreation program, so that the people that use the recreation program pay for it, and the people who don't are not subsidizing it. We believe it's a business model that will work, but the key thing is we need to have the facilities that are properly maintained and all that that people want to use them. And then last but not least, in Deltona Water is administrative assistant, and then a utility systems tech. And That closes out the personnel request. There are some other personnel items that you will see when we go through the budget. For instance, several years ago, we shifted right-of-way mowing from the general fund to the stormwater account. What we're finding now is the general fund is in better financial state than the stormwater fund. And so what we're proposing is to shift the right-of-way mowing from stormwater back to the general fund. What that will do is that will free up some money for more capital projects in the stormwater fund without having to raise our stormwater utility fees. Did that cover any questions on the personnel?
When you went over Deltona Water, you said those last two positions are not approved yet?
Pardon me?
Did I hear you correctly when you said in Deltona Water, the administrative assistant utility systems tech, you said they're not approved yet? Or they are going to be approved?
They are in the budget for 2 additional positions in Deltona Water.
Okay. For some reason, I thought you said they're not approved.
Yeah. Now, the next page are the positions that were not approved. There was a position in the city clerk's office that I didn't approve, and then a facilities maintenance specialist. There were several of them. I wanted to take a good hard look at the possibility of using contractual services. I'm not convinced that it will be an ongoing need. So therefore, what we will do next year, do it through contractual services rather than hiring the people. One other personnel change that has occurred in the last week is we have 2 positions in City Hall, one in the legal section and one in the code area downstairs, that perform what I consider to be very similar function. And so my plan all along was to eliminate one of them. We have a person in the code area that moved to a position in planning. So we moved the lady from legal downstairs to code. So when we get to the legal budget, about $90,000 of that legal budget will be eliminated by the elimination of that position. But I will talk about that in more detail when we get to that part.
Currently, what do we have? 16 code enforcement officers? And how many folks do we have working in Parks and Recs right now?
I don't think you have 16 code officers.
I thought that was a number with staff and the code officers. I thought it was 16 when we did our code enforcement things.
Well, code enforcement,
do you have
about
an
12
actual?
officers in the field, and the intent was to go to 18 officers in the field. I know that one.
Okay.
Parks and Rec is a fairly large department, and I may have you wait until Ryan gets to the Parks and Rec budget, and we'll talk about that more specifically.
All right, perfect, thanks.
And just for a clarification, tomorrow we'll have Deltona Water and Sewer, Construction Services, and Code Enforcement Services. And then on Wednesday, Public Works, Transportation Fund, Stormwater Fund, Planning and Development, CRA and Grants. And on Thursday, Park and Rec, Park Projects, the Center, General Government, and the Municipal Complex. So we can have, the directors for those will all be here then to kind of drill down if we need to on those, for anyone that has specific questions on those departments.
See, currently we have 12 code enforcement officers right now. It's a budgeted position.
If there are no other questions, what I'd like to do is shift the schedule and ask Sheriff Chipwood to come up and talk about the law enforcement portion of the budget.
And that should be tab 9 in your budget book.
Thank you. Yes. And obviously, it's going to be me presenting I'm not as handsome as the sheriff, but hopefully I'll suffice. I do have our CFO with me as well, in case you have any detailed questions, and the sheriff's here as an observer. So with that, we'll go ahead and begin with the presentation, if that's okay. All right. So for our department responsibility, the primary mission of the Volusia Sheriff's Office is providing a safe and secure environment for the residents and visitors of Volusia County. This is accomplished through programs, plans, and community policing efforts. The VSO District 4 provides law enforcement services to the city of Deltona and unincorporated areas of southwest Volusia County, including the communities of Enterprise, Osteen, and Stone Island. And there's the organizational chart. Basically, we provide law enforcement services for the city of Deltona. So for our budget this upcoming year, for the 1920 actual budget, the total was $12,387,908. We went up to $12,493 under the current budget. It was about a 0.85% increase, which was less than 1%. And what we're asking for the upcoming proposed fiscal year would be $12,559,500. That's an uptick of just over 0.5%. So still we're under 1% in that proposal. Talk about our accomplishments for 2021. Increased proactive crime fighting strategies through intelligence-driven operations based on identifiable trends and reliable intelligence. You all are familiar with CompStat at this point and some of the technology that we provide the city and that we collaborate with the city in order to solve our various crimes. Implemented positive and innovative selective traffic enforcement initiatives. Increased partnerships with local businesses and local community resources, and reduced response times to Part 1 crimes. This past year, for the year in review for last year, I had mentioned the fact that we reduced our times as far as Part 1 crimes were concerned and response times and getting there for those particular crimes. So our visions and goals: increase proactive crime fighting strategies through innovative law enforcement operations, implement positive and innovative selective traffic enforcement initiatives, promote and increase partnerships with local businesses and local community resources, and finally reduce crimes at Walmart on Howland Boulevard via establishment of a substation. That substation, just so you know, has been established since March of this particular year. We've already seen some really positive feedback from that initiative. So I'm excited to get on that as time goes on. Increase collaboration between the agency and loss prevention and deterrence of crime through increased police presence. And then for our key performance measures, as you can see the numbers there, the actual for fiscal year 19 to 20, our estimated for 2021, our current year. How I obtained those numbers, basically I took the past 6 months for this particular year and multiplied them by 2, and that's where I got my estimated. And then of course for next fiscal year, those numbers should stay around the same. So any questions for me?
Commissioners, go ahead and ask if you have any. I have Commissioner Vasquez and then Commissioner McCool.
Thank you, Mayor. The station that you opened up by Howland Boulevard, how many staff, deputy staff are there?
As far as Howland Boulevard,
Did you say you opened up a station, like a?
Oh, no. That was a substation.
A substation.
Yeah, it's a place for us to be able to basically do our reports, have police presence there at the Walmart. The reason for that, if you recall, last year we had over almost 900 calls for service just at the Walmart. So realizing that is an area that we need to focus some concern on, actually Lieutenant Shups and Lieutenant Ron came up with the idea of, maybe we can work with Walmart and see if they would, appropriate a substation for us there. And so far we've had some pretty good feedback. We're working really well with the loss prevention personnel there. In fact, we've done some shoplifting initiatives, proactive operations. I've seen a lot more police presence, so forth and so on. So that was the reason for that.
Okay.
There wasn't a cost in that at all. Walmart they were gracious enough to furnish it, even provide us our own keypad to get into that particular area. It's also secluded, so individuals that are shopping there at Walmart, they don't have access to that substation as well, so.
So how long is your staff there for?
It varies. It's just a place for them to, to crash, to do their reports if they'd like. We ask them to conduct extra patrols there. Being that they provide refreshments and things of that nature, it kind of entices them to be there and to show more presence. Plus, it's nice to have a patrol car out front, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Captain Marino. Appreciate
you.
it very much. I see in the report here, the responsibilities, the accomplishments, the budget overview, vision and goals, that kind of thing.
Yes, ma'am.
But I want to know what your needs are for this community. I know that there should be a wish list, right, of things that you would like to see. And I would like for us to be good partners as well. So is there a particular need that the department sees moving forward that would affect our budget? I know that when Sheriff Chitwood was here last, he spoke about we're having now a mental health counselor ride, and I'm asking you this for a reason. I'm asking you because we have definite traffic needs here in Deltona. There's been a really bad uptake in recklessness here. I want to kind of ask a little bit about LPRs. And then I also want to ask about if it's in discussions, if we need to, if we can discuss, we need a sheriff and a youth program really with a strong presence here, I believe. So I want to hear what your thoughts are on that. Because, listen, we have kids. I see kids over by the park at my house all the time. These kids out on the motorcycles, riding on the streets, no helmet, blazing through. There was almost a head-on collision just in my neighborhood the other day for this. The kids are bored, and I know that it's not the sheriff's department's responsibility, right, to entertain bored kids, but I think that we, however, need stronger program involving youth in the sheriff's department. So with that being said, if you could just address that.
Sure, I'll try to remember
Right,
all the
I know.
points. As far as traffic is concerned, we definitely in agreement with you. We do have obviously with a higher population, especially given last year with the COVID issues, we hardly had any traffic at all. But a majority of our complaints are traffic related. So what we've done is obviously conducted extra initiatives, traffic enforcement initiatives. And believe it or not, historically, we've always kept records of the complaints that we received, or whether it be through citizens or through city commission, through the city manager, the sheriff himself. We continue to do that, but what we're doing this year is every ComStat period, so about every month or so, we're providing the city with those actual figures so that you can see how we're doing and how much we're issuing citations, warnings, how we're addressing the particular problems that you're bringing to us. Now, graciously, a couple of years ago, you all provided us with extra deputies, and so that increased our Deltona traffic unit numbers by a couple, which has helped out tremendously because we've been able to inject those individuals in what's called a swing shift. So we've been able to handle traffic issues beyond your normal day shift hours. In addition, we've also been able to provide traffic units 7 days a week. So we're going to continue to do that. So we're trying to tackle that. As far as other traffic initiatives, we've also last year I think we did 3 traffic operations. This year we're amping it up. We're going to do at least 4 this year, maybe even more, depending upon what the year looks like. So.
Yeah, and the reason I brought that up, it wasn't certainly not a performance issue, but I'm trying to understand as our budget allows. I'm trying to think about preventative measures because I just see an increase in those types of behaviors. So that's what I'm talking as we move towards budget. If the sheriff's department is thinking of things that might not be covered in our budget here that we desperately need. So that's what that was about. Your performance is certainly not, under question, but I just want to be thinking that way.
Well, actually, and I'm wanting to have some type of collaboration with the city in terms of just the perception of the city, I think, is important. Somebody had mentioned, I think it was Mr. Peters, I could be wrong. Somebody had mentioned there's a particular sign, it's a speed limit sign that's solar powered there off of Providence Boulevard near Howland. I would love to see those where our LPRs are located within the ingress, egress portions of our city, so that when an individual comes into Deltona, it shows, hey, listen, obviously traffic's an issue here, or speeding is something that we want to make sure that you're adhering to, and then increase enforcement efforts, especially in those locations, not just throughout the city. So I'm pretty excited. I've got a new sergeant that's going to be transferring in who's got a really good grasp on that. And I'm anxious to sit down with them and kind of talk about the vision of how we want to, do some things along the lines of traffic. I think that with purchases like that the city might be encouraged to make in terms of putting those signs up, and of course our enforcement efforts and being out there and showing that, listen, we're just not going to tolerate speeding in the city. I think we can send out the right message, and I think it's going to make individuals that are living here and visiting here feel a lot more safer. So it's definitely an area that I can see that we can definitely have some momentum in. So, yes, ma'am.
Vice Mayor?
Those were a couple of the same questions that I had, just to elaborate. One is that we're staying with 83 deputies, and I know we've had a rise in residences over the last year, and probably going to have a rise this year as well.
Yes, ma'am.
And what I don't want to have happen is we get back to that place we were when we had 79, so now we're still at that same ratio of deputies to residents where we were starting to have a problem. And, I have seen a great improvement. We're not going to say it's 100% on Howland down at that end. Do we have readers on that end of Howland down by the Walmart? Do we have the traffic readers down there? We do, the tag
off of
readers?
415, actually from one end of 415 to the other one, up by, what is that, Reed Ellis. So we're getting them
It's by
coming in
Reed
from-
Ellis and 415?
Yeah,
What
coming
about
in from
Howland and 415? Is there any
Howland
over
and
there?
415, there's one. It's not exactly at Howland and 415. It's at 415 and, is that Fort Smith? I think it's Fort Smith, so.
Yeah, because I know we got a lot of traffic coming in from Lake Mary, Sanford.
Yes, ma'am.
Which led me to, and I'm sure you probably don't have it off the top of your head, the statistics for the Walmart at the end of that Howland are a lot of those individual perps, Deltona residents, or are we finding they're from?
Yeah, we don't have those
Do we have
numbers.
any knowledge on where they're from?
I haven't really kept track
I
in
can't say
terms
they're
of
crossing the bridge, but,
Yeah.
I've got a hunch of it. Not that Sanford's not the best. I didn't say that out loud.
As far as the dynamics of who, in fact, are committing these crimes, most of them are shoplifting crimes. I don't know that off the top of my head. I just know that we had an issue there, so obviously with that being a hotspot, we needed to do something. So that's why we
Is that Walmart comparable to the Walmart in Orange City? Is that a comparable thing to have with the Walmarts, or is that just like out of the norm for Deltona? And I'm sorry to throw a lot of questions at you. I'm just
that's
trying to
okay.
figure out, obviously it's something you guys are trying to be proactive on, and we want to make sure we give you guys everything you need to be proactive.
Yeah, no, as far as the comparability between us and Orange City, I don't really know comparatively. However, I can tell you that just in the last 3 months, and talking with loss prevention, they're ecstatic. Things like, the homeless population in that particular area that used to be, a problem, especially with shoplifting, things of that nature, that's reduced just from our, being there. So officer presence has helped in that. Also catching individuals as opposed to having these larcenies that linger that we aren't able to solve those particular crimes. They're catching them more, as time goes by. And then the loss prevention, it's a cool thing because now loss prevention, they're into it as well because they see that we're into it. So they're being more proactive as well. So their figures as far as what their losses this year, just in that 3-month segment, compared to last year, they're saving so much money from, the prevention of these items leaving that store. So
No,
they're
that's
saving
great.
the business money as well, so.
No, that's great. That's great. So I just want to make sure, we're keeping them up on how many homes are approved and coming in so that we're prepared for the next budget, because I don't want to see that deputy ratio go down
Yes, ma'am.
to where it was 2 years ago. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Commissioner Vasquez?
Thank you, Mayor. Captain Marino, I know that Commissioner McCool asked this question, and I think it was lost between the answers, but it was geared towards the youth of the community, and I know you and I had a lot of conversations about this. I was trying to look through the papers, but are there any plans to start or get involved in organizations that already exist. Going back to Commissioner McCool's question, to get our youth here in Deltona busy with activities, besides what we already have at the West Quad Park, which I understand, Parks and Recs is adding more activity, but we really like to get something going like, PAL and stuff here in Deltona.
Commissioner, thanks. I have a report coming to you, John. It tells you everything that we're doing, and I think it's Horizon Elementary is where we're in mentoring and running a summer camp. Every deputy we have is on patrol. If you want to give us the resources to start a PAL unit, we can come up with a figure to do that. To answer Commissioner McCool, there's a federal money out there out of a COPS grant that we're exploring to use here. And how it works is you can hire up to 10 cops, and the federal government pays 75% of their salary the first year, then they pay 50% the second year, then they pay 25% the third year, and then the fourth year, they're your employees. So we're looking at what the parameters are to use that, because they're really strict when you get it. The one I had in Daytona, they can only be used as school resource officers. So we're investigating that to put that into the city, because that would give us a 4-year, you'd have income coming in for 4 years for those deputies, and then as people retired, you would just slide them into that full-time slot that you're paying for. So to answer the question that you're asking is that every deputy we have is in patrol, or they're in the detective division or in narcotics. We have no spare bodies to open up a PAL center. We don't. We just don't. What we do here, I do from pulling other resources into Horizon. There's other resources from the county that come over to run the programs we run in Horizon.
Sheriff, have we at any time asked for those numbers to, to enhance our services as far as those extra deputies to do something like that, mentoring or whatever with our youth? Have we?
I know as I was the sheriff, I've never asked for that. I've never came forward with a budget request saying, hey, if you want us to open up a PAL center, we would need 2 or 3 more deputies, and that's what they would do. And they would just be, I guess, if your vision would be, they would be assigned with Department and Rec, and that's where their assignment would be. That would be what your vision for how you wanted it to run. As I'm getting text, I'm trying to get exactly what she's got here.
If I may jump in, I know that when Captain Egan was here, we started a conversation. I was not an elected official at that time, but we did start a conversation. I think Mayor John Mazarzik was also on board, and I had sent him an email, and I know we were very interested, and we were looking to see how possibly can be incorporated with volunteers and city, ongoing city programs in Parks and Recs. So maybe we can, take where that was left off and see if something can be come up.
We did have a footprint in the Boys and Girls Club until COVID came. And then obviously that wiped that out. And I misspoke, it wasn't Horizon, it's Heritage is where we have that. And then we have a drop-in program at the library. I think it's on Tuesday nights for for elementary and middle school kids as well. So whatever you guys want to put something together, I don't know if you want to have a workshop on a topic. As soon as I get the information on the cops, what the specifics are, I'll send it to you, and then you could send it to the commissioners, and then we can.
Would that be Carla that we would need to talk to?
No, for
the youth programs?
She's going to send you what we have currently, what's going on right now. She's going to send that to John, and he could disseminate it to you folks. But I know I keep saying Horizon. It's Heritage, and it's the library. We have 2 programs in. Okay. And then we were involved in the Boys and Girls Club till COVID hit. And then this grant will get you we'll tell you exactly what the parameters are on this grant. Because the good thing is you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay for 4 years is what you're doing. They're giving you money for 4 years, and then you have your vacancies to assimilate those people into the slots.
Thank you.
All
Madam
set,
Mayor,
Commissioner?
if I can jump in here. We have coordinated with the Sheriff's Department on several initiatives. As you all know, we've had concern with speeding, unsafe driving. Captain Marino has been very responsive. I have forwarded a lot of emails to you all about their weekly crackdowns. The Public Works Department is in the process of getting 10 the speed limit sign with the LED speeds underneath, where it will give you information about how fast you're going. And that is to help, just to remind people that, you know, what the speed limit is and what they're driving. Hopefully they slow down and not use it as a game. But John O'Grady has been coordinating with the Sheriff's Department on a number of initiatives for the future, inclusive of, you know, being part of the ComStat program, because there are some real opportunities between code enforcement and the Sheriff's Department. We may see certain activity as part of code that may be indicative of a drug house or something like that. We will be coordinating with them so that they can be better prepared to deal with those things. So we're finding a lot of opportunity. You know, Mr. O'Grady, you know, was brought in to help out with code enforcement, but you know, his background in law enforcement has proved very valuable as an asset for, you know, my department to interface with the Sheriff's Department for the betterment of the community. As the sheriff indicated last Monday, you know, we have, you know, surprisingly good crime stats compared to what the public says. And that's a testament to their work, but it's also a testament to the fact that we're coordinating very well. Now I'm able to, you know, give them some concerned properties, and you know, we've been able to work together on them. So I just want to compliment the Sheriff's Department for being very proactive on concerns that we have brought forward.
The goal with code enforcement is every time we serve a drug warrant, that we automatically, they come in right behind us. So if it's a rental, you know, and somebody's living in New York, and we want to be able to go after them through the code. And to your point about Walmart, if you want, it's really easy. All we have to do is run the address, and it'll pop up the arrest reports, and we could tell you the percentage of local people versus whatever. Every Walmart is an issue. We run constant operations on the neighborhood Walmart on Woodland Avenue, and you know, they go there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, they make 50 arrests. So and then we have tons of calls for service for there as well.
Yeah, I kind of figured it was more of a Walmart in the area, and we're getting people from all over. I don't think it's so much a Deltona problem as it is, you know.
Sanford loves to come over the bridge. Sanford loves to come over the bridge.
Yeah, I mean, we're right there at the end. It's a hop, skip, and a jump for them. So, thank you.
Just a couple questions. I remember about 6 or 7 years ago when Captain Brannon was the captain here, we looked into a PAL program, and he did a presentation at that time, and it was about $375,000 or $325,000 a year, something like that. And the reason that it was not pursued in Deltona was the fact that DeLand had a lot of corporate sponsorship. They had a lot of people, you know, businesses and so forth that were willing to contribute and be part of that. And because our business community was never that large, we were not able, or we didn't at that time feel that we were able to go ahead and solicit that amount of community support financially to support that. And that was a specific program that basically followed DeLand's model. That I remember. Two things. Code cooperation was one question. The other question I have, impact fees. Pulling up the impact fee schedule, we charge $63 law enforcement impact fee. That's what the effective date for that was in 2017 with that adjustment. For single family, multifamily, $63 across the board. It's $123 for firefighters. Can someone tell me what we use those impact fees for law enforcement impact fees?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to remind the commission that you recently approved a contract with a consultant to review all of our impact fees, and that will be part of that review. So I just say stay tuned, and we'll be coming back. I think that number is exceedingly low. And I fully expect that there will be a significant adjustment in that number.
There might be a significant adjustment, but the state has put a damper on all impact fees right now, so you're also limited on what you can, what you can adjust. But I was just curious as to know, I mean, the impact fee dollar amount for both police and fire is extremely low. It is low. And looking at adjusting that, what can those funds be used for if we go down that road? And what are they used for now?
Well, typically, what we have used them for in the last few years has been basically equipment requests. If they have new equipment because of new needs, because of more residents moving in, they have more expansion. What comes to mind, I think there was a gate for one of the substations, and the LPRs as part of that too.
That's what I was
But
gonna ask.
It's usually growth-related or something that it's justified because we have so many more people coming here.
Okay, because that's a question that I had also in terms of what do the impact fees fund? And if the impact fees, if that amount goes up, will you be able to provide for us then what that increase can be used for? Because as more houses come on, will we need more LPRs? Will we need more things? Just for the future, I mean, not for tonight, but.
But that's essentially what the statute and what our Code of Ordinances say. It's expansion related, so it doesn't necessarily have to be like a new facility, but maybe we're expanding a facility because we just have so many more people to serve. And if you can draw that line from point A to point B, that it's expansion related, growth related, then you can justify using that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Captain. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Peters, you want to go down the list now?
Yes, ma'am, I'm gonna have to move quick because we're an hour in and I only have an hour left. So the next item is the City Commission budget. There's nothing earth-shattering change here. I do want to point out, because I get several questions about it, is that within the, I gotta find it now. Within the City Commission budget, there are 3 areas that we give to local groups. On the last page of the line items, we have $15,000 that goes to the Council on Aging. We have $30,000 that goes to the William Harvey Scholarship, and we have $50,000 that goes to the Homeless Neighborhood Center in DeLand. So that is a significant part of the City Commission budget for those 3 areas. So I just wanted to point that out, that is a significant part of your budget.
Just pausing on that for a minute, what has the Council on Aging been doing? And was there any type of a refund for that last budget? They didn't have a whole lot going on for COVID, so is that money automatically transferred over there for what they do at the center? Because they also have the rent-free there, correct? And I know that'll be part of the center's thing. I was just curious, what are those $18,500 going for, and what happened last year when, because even now, if you go up there, there's no activity for that, so.
Well, in the past years when we've had this, we basically, like last year, I think they asked for $22,000. We kept it $18,500, and we provide that to them. So I do know that they weren't doing the daytime program. They were still doing, I think, Meals on Wheels there, but that's a separate funding source. So it's just being used for whatever else that they do. We don't have any. We didn't get a refund or anything like that, or something specific showing what else they're doing as far as. Once that COVID became a problem, they couldn't really do the same things that they were doing before.
Do they not also get CDBG funding?
They do, yes.
And what is that amount, the 20-some thousand, correct?
I think it's roughly 18 or 20,000. It's not in this budget here. It's out of planning
So
services,
we're looking at
but yes, they do.
$40,000 last year for basically no programs aside from Meals on Wheels, so I can't support any money until we find out what happened. Please, sir, let us know where that funding money went last year, what that was used for, and please indicate what is going on there now, because every time I've been up there, there is no activity.
Yeah, it's my understanding they have not resumed the use of the center.
Oh, it's there, it's there.
Right, but I wouldn't say that there's no programs going on. I don't know that, but we did not, ask them to come back with some kind of.
Do we not have an accountability form for what they spend that on?
They don't file a report with us or anything like that, unless they do it for CDBG.
For CDBG, they file a report.
Okay.
They do, they should. Okay, because that's concerning to me, that we have $18,500 going to an organization, and I haven't even gone down to the next one. I mean, the scholarship, we know where that goes. So, did you want to say?
No,
okay.
To your point, I was just wondering if there is no accountability. I mean, that's concerning. Because again, They don't have any programs. They still have the Meals on Wheels. I know they opened for a small portion of a time to see if they can do it, but it wasn't working. There should be some type of accountability if this money is coming out of the city to them.
If we're the grantor, there's no reason why we can't ask them what they're, for a report or something kind of statement of how they're using it, since this is coming out of, basically, the commission is providing this allotment to them. And there was some discussion about that last year. We didn't do any more than that, but this is the same question that came up that you're asking right now.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, part of the reason I pointed out the 3 line items is somewhat your concern you just expressed, which is we have a number of areas in the city where monies are put out, or we have agreements with people where we don't have a contract or an agreement that provides a level of accountability. I'm aware of other municipalities that get based in like the Little League, and they're supposed to get a financial report every year, and they don't, and they're not held accountable. And so what we will be doing is bringing forth modified agreements to go with these expenditures on what our expectations are with regard to reporting back. So that will be forthcoming as we go through the budget process before October, so that the commission can agree to agreements. For instance, if we're going to give Council of Aging $15,000, it needs to be understood what the money is supposed to be used for, what we desire it to be used for, and what it was actually used for. Same thing with the scholarship fund and any other programs that we have of this nature. That is one of the things that I've had conversation with several directors in the city where we just have not had the level of oversight that we need to have. And that's part of the culture that we need to change.
I'm sorry, Vice Mayor, and then Commissioner Vasquez.
No, it goes on the same thing that you had, Mayor. So did the scholarship fund go up? For some reason, I had 15,000 in my brain. Has it always been 30?
It used to be 50, and then it went down to...
I know it was 50 when we dropped it. So for some reason, last couple of years, I thought it was only like 15 grand because we'd lost our funding source.
No, it's been 30 the whole...
No? Okay.
Since we dumped it from 50.
And then, yeah, the accountability, I mean, we went into this agreement with the neighborhood center, gosh, Mayor, was 3 years ago, 4 years.
I think this is year 4 or 5.
This
4
is
to 5, right?
4 or 5. We had what? How many years we do? 8?
No, 5-year
5.
agreement, and I believe this is year 4. This will be year 4.
So we got 4. So we only have 2 more years on that, right? Okay.
Madam Mayor, if I can interject, with regard to the scholarship fund, the commission actually appoints the board for that scholarship committee. That is we have ample opportunity to put, say, bylaws together on what our expectations are and how it should operate and what have you. And so that is something that we need to have serious discussions about going forward.
They have bylaws, and I was on that scholarship committee before I got elected. They have bylaws and they have parameters, and it's very transparent. If the commission doesn't want to fund it, that's a whole different story. But the application process and so forth is transparent per what we do in the city. It's accountable there. And they do have the same bylaw set that all our other boards have. From that, that's my understanding.
And the funds go directly to the school. not
Yes, they go to the school. They don't go to the individual. But, I mean, if the commission wants to reduce the funding or something, that's whatever the commission wants to do. But it is a transparent process. I'm sorry, Commissioner Vasquez.
Thank you, Mayor. But my question was, are the funds given directly to the student or the college? So you just answered my question.
Goes to the school.
So is there a requirement that this student needs to graduate if they decide to drop off or something? Is there some kind of...
No,
I don't know.
I believe they just have to be, graduate and register to a college or university, and then the money would be applied there too.
Right. However, I know that I have been part of a lot of other scholarships, and part of the application states that if they do not complete the course or whatever, they have there is it doesn't say they have to, but it says they can possibly be asked to reimburse.
And offhand, I don't know if we have a requirement that they finish the course, if
No.
they get a satisfactory grade, or that they graduate entirely. I don't know if we have those
Okay.
requirements.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner, that isn't in their packet. You just have to be registered. Yeah.
I know, I was trying to think who was talking.
We actually do oversee that board, so you don't have to finish it. It doesn't say anything about finishing it. You just have to be registered, and like we said, the money does go directly to the school. If the person, because we've had several people where they go ahead and they've said that they registered at a school, and we verify it, and if they're not, we ask that school to refund the money and give us the money back, and we
And
have
they
to
do.
wait for them, and it's only for the fall season, so if they're registered for anything else, they don't get it either.
And I believe the application process is pretty thorough. It's not perfect, but I think it does a great job.
Madam Mayor?
You answered my question, Joe.
As I
I'm
said
sorry.
earlier, if we want to have a debate about the appropriateness of certain programs and stuff, I would suggest we do it outside the budget process. This is about the funding. If we want to discuss the scholarship program or these other programs, I would suggest that we either have a workshop or agenda this for a separate discussion.
Okay. I think if we're going to go through this, let's ask the question, and then if we need to bring things forward, like if we want to have a report back on Council on Aging or on that, we can make that decision before the final budget, correct, sir? Any more questions on the city commission budget? Nope. Next one is city manager.
All right, I'm gonna make it quick. City manager's office is basically the city manager, deputy city manager, 3 staff level people, public information and Deltona TV related functions, and the economic development. With regard to the budget, there's nothing earth shattering. I do have an announcement. We have a person for the deputy city manager. She has accepted the position. She will probably be on board in about 30 days. She had to give 30 days notice. She is the village manager for East Buffalo Village, Pennsylvania. She's been in that role for 9 years. We are very excited to have her come on board. Her name is Stacy Kipolo. And so not too distant future, we will be introducing her to you all.
Okay. Any questions, commissioners, on the city manager budget? None? Then we will move on to next, which is the city clerk.
Joyce, you want to handle this? My budget hasn't changed too much over the last 13 years, for the most part. We did ask for the one addition to the personnel, just because of public records. We have 3 people doing it now, and things are just falling through the cracks. We have upped our office supplies because the agenda packets are getting really big. That's the only reason for that, and with all the backup and being more transparent, having more items on the agenda, it's causing us to use more toner, more paper. That's the reason for that. Some of you asked for both, some of you asked for just electronic or just paper. But for the most part, it's pretty much the same.
Okay, any other questions for city clerk department? Somebody here. Commissioner McCool.
Do we have an update? I know that we're continuing with an automated public records request process. I'm asking this, how can we help you for this process to run more smoothly for you? How can we help so that our residents are getting what they need? I mean, I just hear, this is not my area, and I understand what a difficult job. I have seen the volume of public records requests that you get, and what is it that we can do as far as continue with an automated public records request? Where are we in getting that in and getting it fed so that you can have a little relief?
The automated system is in. We've been doing it about a year now. It's almost a full year in progress. It is actually working wonderfully. We all love it. The issue with public records requests is training another person to do it and having the knowledge that I have. You don't train that overnight. And public records, there's a lot that they give this very vague, broad spectrum, and we can't guess or assume, so they get an outrageous, estimate from us. If they narrow it down, or 9 times out of 10 they know what they want, they just won't ask for it. And that's our biggest hurdles that I have to go through right now. But the system works. The system is running very smoothly. We've got all the departments on board. There are certain people in every department that we have access to, that we email them through the system, that they respond. They have 2 days to respond to us, unless it's something really voluminous, depending on if it's an estimate that we're asking for or the records. But
Ms. McCool.
And could I? Oh, I was going to.
Ms. McCool, if I can jump in here. Recently, a number of the commissioners went through open meetings, open records class held at the center. Subsequent to that meeting, I have had some discussions about having a workshop specifically for public records. But subsequent to that time, we had strategic planning process, 7 code enforcement workshops. We're in the middle of 5 animal control workshops and obviously budget workshops. So as soon as we get through the budget process, the plan is to have a workshop dealing with public records, what the law is, what the requirements are, and have a wide range discussion about how we can improve the process. So that is in the works for this commission and the public and staff to review the whole process and see what we can do to improve.
And if I could just add to that, to what Joyce was saying, the legal issues are getting more and more complicated. And so a lot of time that's spent on these requests is Joyce and I usually going through the public records law and dealing with, people think you can just pull a file out and hand it to someone, but it requires redactions. It requires to make sure that we don't hand over anything that we are not legally allowed to hand over. And all of it is getting more and more complicated with regards to the kinds of requests we're getting, to the types of questions that they're asking. And, while the system has improved greatly being automated, we still have those really thorny legal issues oftentimes that we have to deal with to try and figure out what we can allow through and what we cannot allow. So.
Vice Mayor?
I guess when I look at the numbers, Ms. Joyce, of 19 to 20, going from 85 advisory boards to 150, transcribed minutes 674 to 1,000, switchboard calls 13,000 to 15,000, records requests 650 to 1,100. I guess part of me goes, is one additional person going to be enough? I mean, I don't want to throw it out there, but we're doing minutes from February. And
again, I got to train someone to do that if I'm.
And that's the thing that, so that's why it's like, do you need somebody just to do minutes for all the different boards and advisory and minutes and somebody for records? I mean,
that's what the new admin's going to be.
It's like, is one person enough? I mean, I look at this and I shake my head going, there is no way one person's going to put a damper on what you need to even catch you up. It's almost like you need a part-time person or even a full-time person right now just to catch up meeting minutes.
Right. And we had somebody just resign. I've had somebody on vacation for a week at a time, twice this week.
Good luck finding somebody to work.
For 2 weeks. And I just hired a new person. I put in for 2 people. I got 1 approved, 1 not approved. And I'm going to utilize them with whatever I got. I mean, the last person that I hired said, You know, I'm doing more than what my job description says, and I'm like, other duties as assigned, you got to do what I need you to do. I need to move the department forward. I need to catch up. I need to breathe. And right now, I don't have that.
And this is a critical department. You know, to me, this is a very critical department, and I say that because when we don't produce records requests in a timely manner, and we don't get the minutes out in a timely manner, and we don't do these things, then that's when they start saying, you're not transparent, you're hiding things, and it has nothing to do with not being transparent. We're understaffed. And, you know, if we want to break that, hey, you're not transparent, we've got to get it caught up. And it's no dig on you whatsoever, and I don't want you to think that, but I'm like, we got to unbury you and stop this bleed at this moment. And I don't know if it's, you know, getting somebody now part-time until you do get caught up and you get those people hired, but we're not going to get past this if we don't get caught up. We're not going to get over this hurdle of not being transparent if you're understaffed. Your department's pretty critical to us right now.
I had 7 people when I started 13 years ago. I'm down to 5, and that's what I've pretty much been balancing with.
So you did put in for 2 people, and we got approved for 1.
Mm-hmm.
And 1 additional person is costing how much? 15?
51,000.
51?
With benefits, it looks like.
Question, Joyce. Last year, I remember Commissioner Novick having the same discussion here, and we approved an additional position in your department.
Right.
So how many did that bring you up to last year?
So that brought me up to 5 people, and she just resigned. She just left. So I just hired someone to take her over, and she'd only been there 6 months, I think.
Okay, so that was, this was the same conversation we had last year to hire somebody, and then, so you had an additional person last year, 1 more person this year. And I think the problem across the board is keep getting people and keeping them here.
Because she was doing the minutes, that's why you were getting minutes done.
And so you've got someone that you just hired?
Just hired, they're going to start on Friday, yes.
Okay. Commissioner Sosa?
Yeah, I know I've been talking to Mr. Peters about this here for quite a while about how to improve the public records request. I know you had stated about that Barracuda software, and I mean, I think that would be the thing to do. If we could get, I mean, we're in the age of technology. I mean, why we're handling these requests multiple times manually doesn't make sense. If everything that comes into the city, I mean, if it needs to be redacted, redact it, put it on a server. I mean, we got our IT department. I don't know what the current technology is. I know DASD is not that expensive to, you know, keep all this information warehouse. Therefore, people can just go say, I want to see Mr. Peters' resume. I just go to the website, I type in Mr. Peters' resume. Anything that needs to be redacted is already redacted. I look at it, it saves our clerk a ton of time, and all the information's there. We comply with all public records requests. I mean, I asked for a file, which I haven't gotten. I was billed $136 for just to look at it. So that type of information should be out on the internet. I know you said we're scanning stuff. If I want to look at office supplies, that as soon as the bill comes in, it should be automatically scanned and put on the internet. I mean, we want to talk about transparency. That's full transparency right there. Just scanning it, having it on the internet, having it easy accessible. I don't even have to send an email. I just go to our website and there it is. I mean, have we looked into, you know, upgrading our technology as far as public records request goes?
I'm going to defer to what the city attorney just said a few minutes ago. For instance, if you would ask for my resume, technically under state law, my address is protected. So even though I have a resume that's on file, my address would have to be redacted. That requires somebody to step in. The Barracuda program that I referred to is an excellent resource for emails and files that are in the mainframe. Unfortunately, we get a lot of requests for phone information and text information. I'm not aware of any software available that can go through and do that process. For instance, if you would have asked me to give you all my text messages between myself and somebody, I would literally have to go through my text messages to that person, from that person, and then see if there's any privileged or protected information in there. That requires reading every one of them. You know, we often get criticized for the dollar values of these records requests. What people don't appreciate is the amount of time and effort it takes to comply with the state laws. You know, it would be one thing if nothing was protected and there was no redaction requirement, then yes, I would just download all my text to that individual and from that individual and we're done. But because there are other requirements, then I literally would have to read through every one of them to make sure that there's not something privileged in there. And so, you know, that's part of the reason you get the high value for records requests. And that's part of the reason I want to have the workshop, is so that we all understand what's involved in a records request. So that when somebody gets a bill for, you know, $164 or whatever, then you understand why that can be so. Because when you make a records request for, you know, all the commission texts and phone calls and emails from a certain date to a certain date, that literally requires each commissioner to review their files. And so that's why you have a number like that. So we'll have a workshop on it. We'll talk about it in greater detail than we can tonight. And hopefully coming out of the workshop, we all have a greater appreciation for what the records process is.
Commissioner Vasquez?
When do you
sorry,
have...
Sosa. I'm sorry, Commissioner, I didn't realize you.
When do you have the workshop in mind for public records requests? Because I think this is very important. I think it's one that needs to get done as soon as the budget's over, if not beforehand.
So noted.
Thank you.
Commissioner Vasquez, you were...
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I guess this is something that we can go into further discussion during the workshop, but, you know, and Robert is here, and I can tell you from him, coming from an IT department, there's a system and there's a software, and in order for the system to run the way we want it, you need somebody to input the information into the software. And this is the problem that Joyce is saying right now. She does not have that body to do the input. And I guess once she has a full staff, it probably will get easier for us.
Okay. And no more questions? Move on to finance. Any questions on the finance department budget, commissioners? I don't see any questions for finance. And then we'll move on to the next is, if I'm correct, the city attorney budget.
Really, John and Skip know more about this budget than I do, but...
Well, Madam Mayor, before we leave the finance, I wanted to make an announcement. We are making a physical change, not a PHY, not FIS, with regard to finance. As you all know, in Deltona Water has its quasi-financial department. There are three ladies, one purchasing, one does reconciling, the other one does the budgeting. Those three people are being moved over to City Hall with the finance department so that Camille can be over all of it. Those three people will still be funded by Deltona Water. But what we do is we are moving 3 additional resources in with the finance department so that we can get greater efficiency. For instance, most of the purchasing in the city is actually done by the Deltona Water purchasing manager as opposed to McDuffie. But by having both of them together, we can get better speed in getting it done. Not that it's a problem, but the most important thing is having everybody under the umbrella of the finance director so that the resources can be better used and the processes are the same. So that, I just want to make that announcement. We're just waiting on some furniture so we can move some people around. And as soon as the furniture situation is done, the move will occur probably in July. So I just wanted to make that announcement.
Okay, great. Thank you. Then we'll go to the city attorney's office next.
Okay, city attorney's office. Several things in play here. Last year, well, the last time the contract was done, the city attorney's office agreed to an hourly rate of $157 an hour, which was, in my opinion, pretty low. It's being adjusted back up to where it probably should have been, which is at $175 an hour. While the number sounds big, percentage-wise, it's not that large of an increase. The budget presented here is fairly large. As I alluded to earlier, we have two positions that are very similar in terms of responsibilities in the enforcement area and in the legal department. The lady that was in the enforcement area had moved over to planning, and so we have moved Gladys from the legal department down to enforcement. And so we're not going to fill that position. So that's about $90,000 in salary and benefits that will be removed from the budget the next time we do it. The second thing, and this is a personal preference thing, and I think it's good governance. I used to have a sign in my office in my younger days when I dealt with development a lot. The sign said, as the developer creates the need, the developer pays for it. And for instance, if somebody putting a subdivision in, they need to put 3,000 feet of sewer pipe in order to be on their sewer system, they pay for it. Same thing with water, same thing with roads. They pay for the improvements that they require. Similarly, if the developer creates a need for our city attorney to spend 100 hours negotiating a development agreement, the developer should pay for it. The public should not pay for it. The public should not be subsidizing the developer. The developer should be paying for it. Right now, we don't do that. I've had a conversation with Ron Paradise, the same consultant that we had doing the impact fee study. We're getting pricing from them to further study the best way for us to charge for city staff time. I have seen it done where it's done on a per lot basis for residential and a per acre basis for commercial, where you charge a fee that covers planning and zoning time, it covers public works time, Deltona Water's time, and most especially the city attorney's time. So that if you come in with a 300 lot subdivision and we determine that the fees should be $150 a lot, then they would pay $45,000. Is that right? Yeah. $45,000 toward all of our costs. And what that does is that goes into the general fund to offset the legal costs and what have you. I would suspect, Marcia, you probably spend at least half your time on development-related items. So if they have $600,000 in the budget for legal services for Fowler, then half of that, $300,000, would presumably be paid by a developer rather than the general public and the general fund in Avalon taxes. So we will be bringing to you an ordinance to put that in place so that the developer will offset the cost of legal and staff with regard to development. We're not going to put it in the budget for right now, but it will be part of next year's finances. So I think that's an important element. I know there's certain people that were expressing concern about the size of the legal budget. The other thing that has changed is in the code, there's a requirement that the legal staff be support of code enforcement at the magistrate hearing. That has not been done in the past. And we started doing that, and we're seeing a real benefit from doing it. And so we had to make adjustments to cover that. I just would simply say that while the budget is an increase, partly because of the hourly rate, partly because of the amount of development that's occurring, that will be offset by the fees that we will charge, hopefully starting October 1, to the developers for legal time and staff time.
Okay, commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Sosa?
Yeah. The 600,000 you have allocated here, is that a fixed 600,000 that they get, or is that going to be variable depending on how many budget hours or actual hours worked?
In our contract, there's a maximum, like a threshold of hours, which we bust every month. And it's part of the summary that we do, where you can see at that, we get that figure divided into 12 months if we bust the max. So that's basically, and then you see the additional hours that we just don't get paid for.
Okay. So that would be the max threshold,
Yes.
is the 600,000?
That is,
So if we have
yes.
anything that comes up and above, it doesn't exceed that?
The only other thing is that John didn't get to is the litigation that's been put in the budget. And what's happening is, because we're getting the potential for litigation that would not be covered by the carrier has come in and handled the Osteen case, and that was kind of a shock. The carrier we currently have will cover a case based, the appeal is the appeal of the commissioner's decision. But as an example, when we had the moratorium, the first part of the moratorium that was then, put on hold, or any cases that would result from other types of land use issues, those are not covered by our carrier. So as the city is growing, as the development is going, there's more and more hours that, like on the Osteen case, we didn't, the carrier didn't, I just on a lark gave them the case to see if they would cover it. And so, but I had to prepare. And we didn't really have a place to bill because we didn't have the litigation category. So that is what it's for. It has to be billed specifically based on litigation. If we're not handling something in litigation, then there's no billing against it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Marcia. Let me just go back to this. Okay, any other questions? If not, we will move on to, we have next HR. Okay, any questions for the HR budget from the commission? Fairly self-explanatory. Commissioners, nothing?
Madam Mayor, if I can jump in
Yes,
with
sir.
one real quick comment. I want to call out the HR staff this last year. Because of COVID, they were extremely busy dealing with potential cases and making determinations of whether people should be at work or not. It put a lot of stress on the department. The second thing going forward is because we are now doing evaluations, that is creating a significant workload on the HR department. But I just want to acknowledge the efforts of the HR department. First of all, with COVID, and now with the expansion of the evaluation process. As we move forward, we will be looking at potentially a merit-based evaluation process, and that will create even a higher level of work. So, the folks in the HR department under Richard's leadership have done a yeoman's effort this last year, and I expect the same in the future.
Yeah, Vice, you done? No? Okay. I think we're good. No more questions? Then we'll move on to IT. How is that department that creates all that magic that I just can't figure out how it gets there? Commissioners, do we have any questions for our IT director? Hold on. Commissioner Avila Vasquez.
I don't know if this question is for now, maybe we should have a workshop on it, but my question is about the software testing. So, Mr. Peters, is that something that can be questioned now, or can it go into a workshop? Well, my question is about testing the softwares and stuff like that. I noticed that, and I don't know if this affects the budget, but I noticed that quite a few times you had to call off testing new software because the departments weren't ready.
Yes.
And to me, that's a big problem, because when you purchase new software, you can't just put it on a shelf and let it collect dust, because by the time you get it installed, there's a new version out there. So I don't know, is there can we leave this for a workshop, or?
I would love to do a workshop, because I think it would be eye-opening to everyone involved.
Yes.
The level of softwares that we used in the city. We are, through Robert's leadership and his staff, we have some incredible software that we make use of, such as EnterGov, and I'm not going to use that word for Munis, but it is an important software. And some of the other softwares that we use here in the city, it's amazing. And then, you know, the hardware that has to drive all these softwares and the data that's created. Unfortunately, sometimes the data that's created is what partly causes the problem with public records requests. Because we have had people ask for, under public record, for the manual for some of our software. And that creates, you just heard her, that creates a problem for us. And so I would love to do a workshop after we do the public records workshop and talk about some of the software that we actually use.
Yes, I would also like that. You know, where I worked, there was no question about, you know, when or can we do a testing. There was no question. It was, when are we going to do testing? So I really appreciate that, Mr. Peters.
I just wanted, if I could, I incorporated Robert into our contract process and purchase order process. And even though I do these things sometimes, even though I don't think I really have authority to do it, but the contracts and the purchase orders we were getting from different departments were far beyond my ability to determine, you know, I looked at them as all having unfavorable terms, and why would we agree to this? And their corporate office is in Tahiti or something like that. And so I asked Robert, you know, because, you know, I'm an old lawyer and tech is difficult for me, and Robert graciously agreed to be part of our contract purchase order review process. So that way I know that everything that's being approved is going through IT. And, you know, because in the past, everybody was just going out there and purchasing software, and we've had terrible issues with some that have taken forever for us to work out. And without Robert's expertise, you know, we could have ended up with something that was not at all what we wanted. So he has, you know, been, to me, a tremendous asset with regards to all of the contract and purchase order and all of those approvals that I get. And I appreciate, you know, what he's done. And he's doing a great job. You know, I'm a real fangirl when it comes to Robert. So.
Thank you. Yeah,
Commissioner King? You were up.
Robert, I want you to know, first of all, that you guys are amazing.
Thank you.
I really appreciate what you guys do here. you know, I am, you know, borderline ignorant when it comes to IT. And if it wasn't for you and your department, there's so many times that I would still be sitting up there in the office just trying to get on the computer because I can't figure out what my password was or something. I don't, you know, so you guys are amazing. But I do have a question, and I need to go back, and I'm sorry, Mr. Peters, I just have to ask this question, because I noticed that when we were talking about the clerk's budget, y'all was sitting back there having a little discussion of your own, and it made me wonder if you guys don't maybe know of some kind of software, or you guys are smart enough to develop something, which I assume you are, that isn't there some way to incorporate into a program all of the essential things that are required to redact information from our records? And when we run a document through that program, it wouldn't just go and mark that stuff off so that you couldn't see it anymore. Is that possible, or am I just thinking that you guys are, you know, little gods?
I think the city manager is correct. It's a big topic. It needs goals and some kind of ideas of our limitation as far, and also what's out there, what's available to us. There are solutions. There are a lot of solutions that we can actually show you, but we need to know what are we trying to accomplish, and a workshop would be great to explain where we're at currently with our products and what we can offer you guys, what you guys want to expect to see as far as, you know, public records and transparency and what we can do.
So I think that's something maybe that we should be looking into, because this office here, the clerk's office, is struggling.
Yes.
You know, they're understaffed, and, you know, they're frustrated, and they've got a lot of stuff going on. And I think it's important that we get those kind of programs either installed or developed and installed, so that they're available to a staff who can really use that stuff. And not only will it be good for our staff, but it'll be excellent too for the community, because once that stuff goes in there and it's already, and it redacts it, things ought to go on the public records a whole lot faster, and people could ask for it, like Commissioner Sosa was saying, you know, go on the website and just, you know, search, click, and it should be there. I may be a dreamer, but it seems like to me that that's possible. So I'd like to see us, you know, look at something like that and see if it's possible to get that kind of program or software for the clerk's office.
Yeah, we can definitely look at that further in the workshop. There's a lot of options out there, a lot of solutions that we've looked at, and there's some, you know, pros and cons to it, and we want to make sure we set our expectations realistically as to what we're going to get, and not make it more difficult for her or make it unsecure. One of the things we spoke about is cloud security, and that's one of the contract things I'm working on with the city attorney. With the popularity of the cloud, there's a lot more detailed information that we have to protect the city, make sure our data is there, and what we're sharing out. So there's a risk. We have to do a risk analysis and find out whether or not that this path is what we want, and what are the repercussions of that for you. But I think a workshop would be great for us to talk about that more in detail.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Vasquez?
Just one more question, Robert. Do we purchase our software or do we lease it?
So with the cloud, it's always a subscription. So anything like our office products are going to be subscription-based. Other software is licenses that we purchased,
And so
But
to make
everything's
any,
moving towards subscription. It's getting more difficult
it's-
that way, so it's.
so in order to make changes, do we have to call the vendor, or can you yourself do changes to it?
So light changes and reporting capabilities and configurations, some of our applications are highly configurable, so we can make some of those changes with the vendor's assistance. But for the most part, they're called commercially off-the-shelf products. So that's what we procure for the most part. But you know, there's some options there for us.
Okay, I think the workshop is going to be perfect. Thank you.
Okay, no more questions? I think we're good, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And next up will be the fire department. Okay, hello,
Hi.
Chief. Any questions, Commissioners, for the chief regarding his budget today?
The only thing I saw that was a bit high was the new Fire Station 63 roof. Have you guys got estimates on that already?
Yes, yeah, we, 2 years ago, we was requested by the city manager to go around and check all of our facilities. Fire department has some of the older buildings in the city, and we were having some problems with the roof at Station 61. So we went around and did all the roofs. We got estimates for 61 and 63. We did 61 last year, and we're looking to do 63 this year.
Those are TPO roofs?
Not sure.
Okay. They're the flat?
Yeah, this one is a flat one. Yeah,
Okay,
61 was a pitched.
Okay, that's probably.
And I'm just going to make the same comment that I did for law enforcement, the $123 a unit for impact fees for fire, and I'm going to assume that we do the same thing, what we use those fees for, just to be equitable across the board and look at, in the future, what can be done with that study. Because there's definitely a need for, using the impact fees, or even if we decide to increase them within the parameters of state law for public safety across the board.
Madam Mayor, I'm just going to make a general overall statement with regard to our impact fees. First of all, we all know that we're doing a study on what the impact fee levels should be in the future. But we've got some tree replacement funds and impact fee accounts that have pretty significant amounts of money in them. And so one of the things we want to do the coming year, we're not identifying the project right now, but we want to draw down some of those accounts. For instance, if you go to Harris-Saxon Park, it's a big open field in the outside, there's no shade. I would love to be able to use some of the tree replacement fund to reforest that property, to get some shade for people, and some other locations in our park system, and even on our streets. Similarly, with the fire department, the impact fee, much like the sheriff's department, is for equipment and things that are created by the future growth. And so Camille has been an excellent resource for us in terms of making that determination. For instance, if we were to get a new fire truck and a new transport truck, but we kept our older ones so that as we grow, say out toward Osteen or out Doral Road, and we ultimately do a deal with Volusia County to take over the Enterprise Fire Station, not saying we will, just giving you an example, then we would have some equipment that could go there. And so therefore, that would be construed as equipment that would purchase for the purpose of growth. So those are the things that we have to figure out and what have you, but we need to start utilizing these impact fee accounts better so that we can lessen the impact on the general fund.
Absolutely. Commissioner McCool.
Thanks, Chief. I just have a couple of questions here about the fire training grounds.
Okay.
How, do you know off the top how old the one in Daytona is? It's pretty old.
Yeah, it's I want to say at least 20, 25 years old.
And can you just say, with it being 20, 25 years old, the odds of there being a revenue stream, right, with our new facility, if we do that, they're pretty good to capture that?
I would think so. I mean, we're really the only facility on this side of the county. So if we build it out right and are able to incorporate not only our partners around us, but also our partners in the city, maybe even incorporate the sheriff's department in some of the stuff that we do, as well as maybe future down the road start to offer actual fire service or EMS service programs. We could charge for those, and that would help offset the cost. I don't know that it would completely pay for the cost, but it would offset the cost of running that facility, yes, and provide that revenue stream that you're talking about.
Does Seminole County have state-of-the-art? Do they have a newer or older training facility?
Well, Seminole State College just recently updated their burn building and upgraded it to gas. I think that was about 10 years ago at the most. So they have a fairly upgraded system over there at Seminole State. Seminole County Fire Services also has a training facility. Theirs is a little bit older. And I'm not sure, do you remember, do they have a burn? They don't have a burn facility there. So theirs is just like a smoke tower, a smoke facility. And then they have other props and stuff around that they do, like they do hazardous materials classes, and they'll charge for that. They do, special operations type classes where they'll do a rope class or a confined space or an extrication class, and they charge for that. And that's all stuff that we could do here as well, if as long as we build the facility correct.
That's what I was getting at, because, I mean, is Ocala's still operational? I mean, have they upgraded, or is Ocala still pretty?
They did upgrade, I want to say, probably about 10 years ago as well, and they added a confined space prop and some stuff like that out in Ocala at it's the actual Florida State Fire College. So they do have some newer stuff, but they still have some of their older stuff out there as well. So it's kind of a combination of new and old.
And we would talk about, as far as revenue stream, also, like you just said, some of the more specialized classes, we have the ability to do that, right? Confined, I mean, we
yes,
would
absolutely.
At this facility.
We teach some of those classes now in combination with Volusia County. At their facility, we've taught some in-house rope classes to bring our people up to speed with doing eye-angle rescues. We've done some extrication classes and stuff like that. So yes, we have the talent to be able to do that. We have instructors that work, at say Seminole State College and over at Daytona State College. So. And then we've also got one that does special operations type classes down in Broward. So we have the talent to be able to do those classes. It's just the facilities to be able to make them happen.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions for Chief Snyder?
And I would also say that we could probably do some stuff like fire officer level classes or engineer classes. Chief Swisher is excellent at engineer pumping and things like that. So really a wide variety of classes that could be taught at a facility. So.
Madam Mayor, on the training facility, I'd like to remind everybody that you all approved a MOU with the fire union regarding transport fees. A part of that agreement was that the money that was left over at the end of the year could go toward a training facility. So each year we anticipate there will be money that could be used toward a training facility. To that end, I'm supposed to have a meeting the next week with a company, it's what we call P3, that has done a number of fire training facilities around the state of Florida. They will design, build, and finance a fire training facility. The money that is in the MOU would be sufficient to fund that P3 process. So it's something that we're looking at with regard to the fire training facility long-term.
Okay, thank you, sir. I see no more comments. Thank you very much, sir.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. And that concludes our group of departments for today. Tomorrow, we have Deltona Water and Sewer, Construction Services, and Code Enforcement Services. We'll be here again at 5:30. Any public comment?
Madam Mayor, there are no public comments.
Okay, we'll close the public comment portion. Any comments, City Manager?
I'm good.
Okay, we are adjourned until tomorrow at 5:30.